All right, so this is part 2 of teaching Norma Jean to lay down. We're pretty much starting back up where we left off the previous video. You can see I go into my cue position, don't even have to touch her with the whip. She knows automatically to drop her nose down to the ground, and she gave me some pretty clear steps forward with the hind feet. She's not very gathered underneath herself, but she's definitely starting to understand that I want both those things, head down and hind feet, to move forward underneath her. I don't feel like she has the idea yet that I might be asking her to lay down. She hasn't made that connection in her mind, but she is figuring out that the next thing that I want from her is those hind feet coming underneath her. So I'm looking to reward, any forward movement with the hind feet, but without her hindquarters swinging over away from me like that, and without her front feet really moving forward. So right there, it was tiny, but her front feet didn't go anywhere. Her hindquarters did not swing out, and she gave me a step forward with a hind foot. So I released the pressure, which the pressure is really just the visual cue of me leaning down and the visual pressure of the whip being there, and also marked and give her food reward. So this has been my main struggle with teaching her to lay down. She would want to walk forward with her front feet and also swing her hindquarters to her right. The reason why I don't want her learning to swing her hindquarters around is because then it puts me in an awkward position where I'm kind of underneath her neck. So you might see me a few times. That was really nice there. You might see me a few times use my whip to gently correct her and bring her hindquarters back to straight, or use my whip or hand on her chest to ask her to back up if she's moved her front feet forward, like there. So she's just working through exactly what it is she's supposed to do. She knows feet forward, but she's like, how about front feet forward and back feet? So when the front feet move forward, I just give her feedback through the lead rope and ask her to back up. And I wait to reward until, like there, the back feet came forward without the front feet going forward. So this might seem a bit repetitive, and it is, but I feel like all these tiny little improvements and tiny little approximations are important to show, because that's really what teaching the lay down is like. With most horses, it's not like you ask for it and then the second time they just, think that you're asking them to lay down and they do it. Some of them are like that, but most of them go through this process. And that was really nice there. Her front feet didn't move, and that's about the furthest underneath her body that her back feet have moved forward. So she actually got a few cookies for that. She got a little jackpot. All right, this is the next day. You can see we had a slight weather change from the day before, and we're starting off pretty good. And I'm thinking that maybe I can have her back feet come forward a little further than the day before. We're still struggling. That was really good. We're still struggling with her wanting to walk forward. So you could see I did give her a few gentle corrections for not, or to ask her to not move her front feet forward. And she got a nice jackpot for that, because again, that was about the furthest forward that her hind feet had come underneath her so far. Okay, and then I hit this point where she's like, I got it. I know what you're going to ask me to do. I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to put my feet underneath, and then you're going to give me a cookie. So before I was even asking for the behavior, she was anticipating it and offering the behavior, which is not horrible. But I really want to try to avoid that pattern with my horses where they're just throwing behaviors at me that I'm not asking for. So I don't really correct her for doing the behavior. I just ask her to back up when she creeps forward. But I'm not going to ask her for the behavior until she, even if it's just for a second, settles, like right. Let's see, I know it's right there. See, she just settled. She stopped trying to show me that behavior, and I said, okay, now I'll ask you and you can do the behavior. And she still wants to creep forward, so there's a lot. Oh, and the hindquarters went over. So there's a lot of asking her. That was good. A lot of asking her to not creep forward with her front feet and not swing the hindquarters away. And I decided to reward that because, yes, those front feet moved forward, but if you looked closely at her knees, her front knees, right, she had a little more bend in her knees, and it almost felt like she was thinking about picking them up or folding them to go into the lay down. Like right there, did you see that little bend in her knee where she didn't walk forward, but she did a little something with the front leg that looked like she might be bending at the knee to go to lay down. So I'm trying to watch out for that and catch it and mark it and reward it when I see it. So now she's going back to the walking forward, but I really like how there she was starting to, there she had a little wiggle in her knee. And before she did that, she was starting to lift her feet up almost like you see horses do before they lay down versus just walking forward. And it might be subtle, but there is a difference there between when they go to walk forward like that and when you get kind of some bend in the knee that looks like they might be going to put their knees down on the ground to lay down. I liked the bend in her knees there. That was really nice. And even though, yeah, picking up a front foot like that isn't necessarily part of the lay down, she needs to fold at the knees and put her knees down on the ground. It's still a progression towards the lay down. And there I wasn't really asking for the lay down, but she started to look like she actually was thinking about laying down on her own. So that time, even though I wasn't asking for the behavior, I went ahead and rewarded it because it was a pretty big deal for her to be thinking, well, looking like she was thinking about laying down. All right, now she's getting kind of way under herself with the hind feet. And I'm not really sure what she tried there, but she tried to do something different with her front feet. So I did reward that and say, yes, you're on the right track. That was a good job for trying to do something with bending your front feet. That was also really nice. She just gathered up super great and had a little bend in her knees. And there, same thing. She gathered up, got a little bend in her knees. Sure starting to look like she might be thinking about laying down. And she got those hind feet right up to touching the front feet. So even though we didn't get any bending action with her knees, definitely want to reward that. That time she creeped forward just a little too much, so I asked her to step back. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but I decided to reward that because her hind feet were all the way underneath and she bent a front leg. That was another good try. And you might notice too that it's been quite a while since I've actually had to do anything with the whip, since I've touched her at all. I still, and then there it is, I had to just do a little something to get her attention back. So I still have the whip on me in case I need to do something like that and just redirect her attention or help her understand, hey, I am asking for something here. But I really appreciate that I'm not really having to use it. I'm not tapping her. For the most part, not tapping her. She's just responding to my body language cue. So we got a little more snow again, joy of Colorado weather. But you can see here, well, maybe you can see here, she's at liberty. I felt like she was pretty close to laying down. And a lot of times if you take the halter and lead rope off, they feel, I don't know, a little more comfortable to lay down. So if I feel like they're pretty close to laying down, then a lot of times I'll go ahead and take the halter and lead rope off. So we're getting some really nice efforts from her here. Head goes down, feet come under, and man, those front legs are bending. I know she's walking forward, but I'm kind of sticking with her here, not correcting her too soon. Then she gets a little too far forward into my space, so I just use my hand on her chest to ask her to back up. And I'm not correcting her as soon as she starts walking forward here because sometimes they will kind of walk forward into the lay down. So I want to be open to that happening. But once she gets too far and she's way in my space and I feel like I'm underneath her, then I will ask her to back up. And there I decide, okay, we've gotten out of position enough. Let's go ahead and reset you, ask you to go back up, and then we'll start again. And that's one reason why I don't want her walking forward, because oftentimes when they start thinking about the lay down, they will paw. And I really don't want them pawing me. Now that was so close, really looked like she was thinking about the lay down there. Here's the next day, we have a little melting going on. And I know some horses like to roll in the mud, but you know, this arena, it is sand, so it's kind of scratchy. It's not too slick, but this arena is pretty darn wet. So we're working on the lay down, but you know, I'm keeping in mind too that she might not be a fan of the footing. So I'm not going to keep pushing too much. Um, you know, I might wait till the next day until the footing's drier and a little more inviting to lay down in. But you start watching her now, and man, she looks a lot like she's thinking about laying down. We're getting there. There go the hind feet. She's just about to knuckle at the knees. She's really thinking about it. She's just not 100% sure about it yet, so I'm staying in position until maybe she does something a little extra, which she did there. You saw a little bobble with her knees. Okay, next day. We're a little drier, so I feel like the footing's pretty inviting to lay down in. Oh, and that's so close. So I'm not going to be hesitant to go ahead and kind of interrupt the lay down a few times and mark and reward, even though maybe I could have not marked and maybe she would have laid down. I still want to be sure that I give her feedback that she's on the right track. So at some point, I'm going to withhold reinforcement until I think that she is going to actually lay down. That was so close, but I went ahead, marked, and rewarded there to let her know, yep, you're on the right track. You're thinking the right thoughts. So I wouldn't be too worried about interrupting the behavior in these beginning stages. You know, still stop them and give them a yes and let them know, yep, you are so close. You're on the right track. Man, she is really trying hard to figure it out. That's really close. She almost did it that time. So, because I felt like, all right, you know, that was almost the lay down. If I didn't stop her by saying the word good, she probably would have laid down this time. I'm going to withhold reinforcement. I'm not going to mark it. I'm not going to say good. Um, and I'm going to stay in my cue position and I'm going to see what happens. And there she goes. We got it. That was our first time laying down. So, of course, she gets a jackpot. Lots of cookies. And I let her just stay down and hang out until she was ready to be done with her little nap and get back up.